Hey guys, so to start our printmaking project, we need to first make 2 stamps that will be used to print our final design kaleidoscope into something like this. This will be your end result, but we need to start from the beginning. So making a stamp, you need 4 different materials. You need your template that you saved, you need a piece of scrap foam board, an X-Acto knife, and one of these green black mats. These are used so we don't hurt the table when we're using this X-Acto knife because the blade is very, very sharp. So I think this is the first time we're using an X-Acto knife in this class. Please keep in mind that the diagonal part of the blade is the sharp part, just like a knife. And you need to always have your finger on top cutting downwards so you're not hurting yourself. So first step is to place your foam piece on your mat and grab your template. You want to try to arrange your template so that you can get 2 cuts from this one piece of foam board, okay? Once you have it all lined up, you're just simply going to press your foam with the X-Acto knife and cut the shape of your template out. These pieces of scrap foam will be thrown away later. That's one piece, and then I should be able to fit this guy on my second. After we have our 2 pieces, we have cut them out with the X-Acto knife. You need to put the cork back on top of the X-Acto knife. Again, this is a very sharp tool, and I'm trusting you guys to be very careful with it while they're out. So there can really be no horseplaying with these, and if it's dropped, that becomes a problem as well. So once we have our 2 triangles, we're going to use our template just like we did on our drawing to trace the letters again on these stamps. Now we are carving 2 stamps because one is going to be the right way to read it, and then you're going to flip it for your second stamp so that we can still show the same reflection on our final paper. So I'm going to show this in time lapse, but essentially what I'm doing is I'm taking a dull pencil or a pen and just tracing my word again so it gets imprinted on my poster. All right, once you're done transferring your word, you can finally throw this really, really sad piece of paper away. If it's not already filled with holes, if you traced it probably 1 or 2 more times, it probably would be. So this is now trash, and you are going to take your pen or your dull pencil and go back over these lines. Just like how we did with the pencil transfer, we want to make sure that these lines on our stamps are really deep. Why? Because when we stamp, our goal is for the actual carved part to not have ink on it when we press down on the stamp, and I'll show you that a little later. But basically, the deeper you carve, the more successful your print will be. All right guys, now that we're done with our 2 stamps, making sure that the carvings are really nice and deep. You can't really see it on the video, but I can show you my stamps so you can feel. You are going to move on to the actual printing process. So to print, you're going to need a few more materials. Of course, you'll need a white piece of paper, a square, the same size as your initial drawing, where the triangles will fit perfectly around it. You also need a piece of scrap paper, which I'll pass out. And each table will have a paint and water mixture that looks something like this, with a foam brush in order to print. So this is how printing works. You take one of your stamps, you will coat it in your black ink or your black paint with a very light layer. If you put too much on it, it will just soak into where you just carved, and we do not want that. The reason why we have scrap paper at our table is so that you can do a practice run before you move on to your final print. So I like to use my paper. You will press down onto your foam piece using your fingers to tap and smooth out the back, making sure that ink gets everywhere. You will lift it up to reveal your design. This one, I probably needed a little bit more paint on it, but I'm pretty happy with the result. Although you can't read the create perfectly, I know it's still there. So I think I'm ready to move on to my final paper. So every time you print, it's just like a stamp. You need to reload it with ink. Of course, just a little bit at a time. And you're gonna line up your stamp with the corner of your paper. So, making sure that it's perfect before I press down. And then I press with my fingers. Making sure that paint transfers over to my final paper. And then you're very, very carefully going to lift it up. So printing is kind of a hard process to perfect. It is okay if your prints or your stamps don't always come out exactly the way you want them to. That's part of the fun. So once you have your first stamp on your final paper, you can either move to your second stamp to finish off that little square, or what I like to do is I keep on using this stamp to work my way around, just stamping every other section to show that symmetry in the end. Now, if you do it this way, you're officially done with this stamp. You can let this dry out and you can actually take it home if you wanted to create this project on your own. But now I need to ink up my second stamp and finish the entire print so that it sort of reflects my kaleidoscope drawing that I have. And just like that, you are finished with your print. The last steps will be to place this wet work on the drying rack, and then tomorrow we will mat it with a piece of black paper just to highlight our ink. After this, you are complete and you can clean up your table.